The CEO of NPR testifies in front of Marjorie Taylor Greene's committee. And so the stage was set yesterday about the bias of NPR. Take a look at this.
Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of political bias determining editorial decisions. No.
Well, Mr. Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0? And you're not biased?
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
All this happened yesterday, and I went to NPR's website this morning. Everything is anti-Trump. Trump did this wrong, Trump did this wrong, and then there was one story about Meghan Markle at the end. This is not worthy of half of Americans, or all Americans for that matter, to pay to keep this going. This doesn't represent the majority of Americans.
All right, guys, it's Thursday. We're on a glide path to the weekend, and I'm kind of excited. The weather is nice. Happy opening day for those who celebrate. For those who identify as baseball fans, I hope you enjoyed today. It's going to be fun. We've got a big season ahead of us. I'm going to go through all of the big trades with Grace Curley, my fellow Red Sox fan up in New England, who's going to break down all of the inside stats that Sam Kennedy and the team at the Red Sox are looking for. Just kidding. But I do want to start. What a big morning. Starting off, the FBI took down a major MS-13 gang banger here in Virginia. Dan Bongino immediately retweeting me, which was kind of cool and huge, confirming the takedown, and those guys showing that they're up and early and at work. But there are a couple things that stood out to me. Number one, the idea that we were gaslit for so long about, well, the country's safe, the borders are closed, there's no problem. And over again, we see bad guys getting rolled up. No one's going to talk about, one, that the Trump administration is getting things done, and two, that the Biden administration clearly was gaslighting us. But kudos to Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, the team at the FBI, for showing us that they're hard at work protecting our country. Reporters in the White House yesterday, by the way, the president welcoming one particular reporter. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
You know, I haven't seen a mask in so long. You're wearing a mask. So nice of you. I haven't seen anybody wearing a mask in a long time. It's good. You feel more comfortable, right? Yes. Good. That's good.
Well, clearly he wanted to welcome that reporter who was wearing a mask. Very nice of them. All right, before we get into the panel, I just want to say, if you're running a company, if you've got 5,000 to 5,000 employees, then you know what you need to do. Save yourself a ton of time and money and get one of these. This is a Ramp card. Now, I'm not stupid enough to actually put mine on there with my number, but it looks just like a regular Visa. Ramp issues virtual and physical cards so that you can set limits on all your employees. You can help with categorization. If you've got an employee like Chris Stigall and you know that they're going to be expensing a lot, you can set limits and you can make sure that they don't go out there and spend a ton at bars and restaurants and charge it to the company. Ramp lets you customize per employee what you're bringing in. It saves you so much. You're not chasing around receipts. You know those people I'm talking about. The person who always has a pocket full of receipts and they're trying to figure out, they never get their expense reports on time. Not with Ramp. This makes life so much easier for your company, and it integrates seamlessly with your existing software. They've got this white glove concierge service so that they make it easy for you. It takes like 15 minutes. I got my company up and running on Ramp. You should do it with yours. I know some guests who've previously done it. They said it's been a game changer for their company. And for a limited time only, listeners of this show can get $250 in their wallet. This is my gift to you. Technically, it's Ramp's money, but I'm giving it to you. So all you need to do literally is go sign up for Ramp. You get $250 for being the person that discovers this. I will not out you. So if you're not the person that runs the finances in the company and you do it, I'm going to keep this our little secret. No group signal chat. I'm not going to rat you out. Go to ramp.com/Spicer. Sign up for a Ramp card right now so that you can make your company run more efficiency. Whether you got 5 or 5,000 employees, you get $250 in your pocket today. Cards are issued by Sutton Bank, members FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. All right, I mentioned this earlier in the week. If you guys are looking for any of the Sean Spicer books, I added a section on SeanSpicer.com. So not only can get you a newsletter, but if you got a birthday coming up, Mother's Day, and you're saying, what's the perfect gift? I have 4 books. You can choose children's book, old school. It doesn't matter. Go to SeanSpicer.com, go to the About section, and you'll see how to order books. But we just added that. By the way, I'm doing a special Zoom call on April 9th. It's a Wednesday night at 8 p.m. All you need to do is text RSVP to 276-500. 1185. And I'm going to go over all of the new wellness products that I'm using. There's a great American company that is better, right? It's a better alternative to Target and Walmart and all those companies in terms of the products they use. Plus, they're much better for you. They don't have all those chemicals in them, and it's the same price. So vote with your wallet. See how I've changed so many of the things in my life, whether it's like soap and toothpaste, stuff I use here on set, wipes, cleaning stuff in the house. It is such a game changer to know that I'm voting with my wallet for a good American company that's sort of in the Maha wellness space. So just text RSVP to 276-500-1185. Join us for this special Zoom on Wednesday, April 9th at 8 p.m. All right, it is my pleasure to welcome in our guest, our Philadelphia correspondent, the man up there who is now nationwide on Salem Radio, Chris Stigall. Our correspondent up in Boston for opening day of the Red Sox, Grace Curley of The Grace Curley Show. And the latest edition, my former colleague, and the woman who has taken over all things Dan Bongino. What a great segue. He's saving the country. He's keeping us safe. And he trusted the keys to the castle to Hayley Caronia, who is the host of the Nightly Scroll that is just taking off on the charts. Hayley, welcome to the group. Congratulations. I mean, this is huge. Dan Bongino says, of all the people that I want to maintain the Bongino brand, it's Hayley Caronia, and you're crushing it on the charts. Congratulations. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Yes, big shoes to fill. Everyone keeps saying big shoes to fill, although I'm not taking over Dan's slot. I was coming on no matter what, but my show is very different from what Dan did. So I'm doing a lot of social media commentary, but it's a lot of fun. And
okay, you're just saying that because Dan's like a size 11, right? So it's not. It's an actual physical thing. Like, he has big feet. I get it. It's a thing with Bongino, but you're killing it. I mean, because again, you got your own thing, your own style, and I see these Apple podcast charts. You're killing this thing. Just before we get into all of the topics, tell us, like, where can you find the show, and how do we download it, and what time do you do it?
Yeah, it's 6 p.m. Eastern time, Monday to Friday. We're on.
This is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. But you can download it, right? You can download it and watch it at 7.
You can watch whenever you want.
Thank you, Hayley Caronia, for appearing. It's now Grace Curley and Chris Stigall.
See, that's why you got to do a morning show. You don't have that kind of competition, Sean. You got to wake up early.
I knew there was a reason here. All right, guys, good to see you all. I want to just start with the tariffs, because I'm going to write my column tomorrow about this. If you hear the media talk about it, it's these tariffs are going to cost us a ton of money. Consumers are going to pay more. I have no idea why President Trump's doing this. It's going to destroy the economy. I have a different take on this, which is if you keep complaining that we're not building stuff in this country, you can, and I'm not saying there's not going to be some pain. He keeps talking about disruption, but like at some point we don't make stuff anymore. And if you don't do something about it, we're not going to change things. And so whether you agree with President Trump or not necessarily on the policy, I think that he is not a guy that's just kicking the can down the road, Grace. And this is a guy who I think gets it. He's been talking about tariffs since like before almost all of us were born.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I have to admit, I'm surprised at Trump's resolve on this and how he does seem determined to actually change how we trade our products throughout the world, how much we produce here. Because to your point, there is going to be short-term pain. There is going to be a bit of a detox from these fake jobs and this excess spending and, getting screwed over by every other place in the world. But I would have thought, and you know him better than I do, Sean, but based off his first term, I would have thought that Trump would be so focused on breaking records and, giving everyone this immediate satisfaction of a roaring economy that he could point to and he could brag about and he could point to the stock market. And so to see him take the long game and to see him say, it's not about my 4 years here. I'm trying to set us up for the next 40 years. I'm trying to change this fundamentally. I'm very impressed by it because I did think his ego would come into play and he would say, I want to show Joe Biden and all these Democrats immediately that I can blow them out of the water. And to see him take a more tepid approach and say, let's start fixing this piece by piece, and it's going to take a while, I think is a very mature, and it's the more difficult way to go. And I applaud it. I think, like you said, we've all been talking about this forever. Made in America, we got to do this. He talked about it on the campaign trail. It's easy to talk about. It's a lot harder to actually accomplish, and that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, Chris Stigall, the thing that's interesting to me is, to Grace's point, like the easy thing is to do nothing, to keep talking about we need to do this, we got a PAX attack. He's actually getting results. People are investing here. SoftBank, Apple, Honda moved the Civic to Indiana that used to be in Mexico. Taiwan chip makers are going to do stuff in Arizona. Things are actually happening. And I think that's his point. I'm going to force manufacturing to come back to America. It may not be. And I remember, to Grace's other point, like during the first term, he would watch that stock market go up and down. And he's not playing the short term. He gets it. This is going to be painful initially. I'll play the long term.
Grace is exactly right. The easiest thing to do would have been print more money, inject more money into the economy, get that stock market up, make everybody feel great because stocks are up. But the real long-term play is, of course, what you just said. We don't make anything in the country anymore. We're a nation full of small towns, which are full of nothing more than Dollar Trees and nail salons and tattoo parlors. It's a pretty depressing thing. Yeah. We used to be a country that made stuff and employed people and had a robust middle class. You can't get back to that. You can't have nice middle-income jobs in this country unless you have places that are making things and hiring people, and we just don't have it. Trump knows that's key. And, Steve Moore, the economist who joins me from time to time, and I know you too, he said, gosh, I wish we'd gotten to work on tax cuts first, and then maybe this other stuff later. I think setting the bar with this first, it is the tougher lift. And Grace is right. It's not politically popular, but it's the right thing to do, and good for him.
Hayley, you're outside the Beltway, as all three of you are. When you guys talk to people, are they sort of going, oh my God, these tariffs are going to kill us? Or, because it's interesting, I actually talk to people who are welcoming them, which is interesting. It's not the narrative that you hear from the Washington Beltway press corps.
Well, I just moved to Florida about a month ago. So everyone here in Florida is very pro-Trump, and they kind of trust the process, right? They voted for Trump. They love to see what he's getting done, and this is what they voted for. And I think during the pandemic, people really had their eyes opened to how bad America Last policies were putting us, this really, really bad position where we're relying on China for masks or whatever it was. And then, well, we need to make them here. And then with Biden canceling the Keystone XL pipeline, and Biden was blaming all these gas prices on the Putin price hike. It was Putin's fault, not Biden's. Of course, Trump is now saying we have to start making things here. And to everyone's point, yes, it might cost us in the short term, but in the long term, we have to rely on ourselves.
Yeah. All right. I want to switch topics, and I'm going to do it quickly because I don't want to ignore it, but I also want to, are we done with SignalGate? I feel like everybody has weighed in. The only ones who want to keep this thing going are Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic and a bunch of DC pundits. But I feel like it's exhausted itself. Everybody's weighed in. Everybody has sort of said their opinion down to Uber driver. Everybody said, here's what I think. And I'm like, okay, there's nothing more. Does anybody disagree that we're done with this? My only caveat, by the way, I just want to say this, everyone keeps saying someone's going to get fired. Well, JD and his wife and Mike Waltz are going to Greenland. And so I've said to folks, look, the manifest going over is set. The question in my mind is, what's the manifest on the way back? Does anyone become special envoy to Greenland and gets, hey, wait a second, where's the plane? Does anyone think that this thing lasts beyond this weekend?
No, and someone that you've had on your show so many times, Sean, and he's kind of like a silent killer. He doesn't give you this impression when you first meet him, is Doug Collins, the VA secretary. He was on CNN this morning with Caitlin Collins, and he did exactly
what did he do wrong?
He did everything right.
No. Why did he have to go? I mean, if you're going on CNN with Caitlin Collins, that's a punishment. No one should have to do that.
But he goes on with her, and my rule is there's probably 5 people I trust to go on CNN and handle themselves and make sure that they get their point across. And Doug Collins was on there to talk about the veterans. Of course, all she cared about was SignalGate. And after a couple of questions, he answered them. He said, it was a mistake. And like everything else, Republicans owned it. We ate crow. We ate it fast. And she kept pressing. And finally he said, I have some questions for you. And he turned it on her and started asking about CNN's treatment of veterans. And that's the way forward here. It's like, we're all sick of talking about it. Let's talk about the MS-13 top leader who was arrested today. Let's talk about the veterans. Let's talk about what Trump's actually doing. And don't let them make this from a 24 or 48-hour narrative. Don't let them spread this out over 2 weeks, because it's done. There's nothing else to say.
And of course, to Grace's point as well, and not to relitigate this, for heaven's sakes, we could go down the laundry list of grievances related to national security abuses and embarrassments under Joe Biden's last 4 years. Chief among them, in my view, Lloyd Austin going under the knife for cancer surgery and telling no one. I find that stunning. That barely registered. So we don't need lectures from these people. Trump, like you don't get any, grace. There is no grace. We have grace here, but Curley, there's no Grace Curley. We have Grace Curley, but he's got to get it right every time. There can be no mistakes ever, and there will be mistakes, and this won't be the last one. Grace is right. We got to just roll forward. We can't roll over here.
And Jeffrey Goldberg is trying to just relitigate this and rehash this. They already had to change the headline to Trump's administration sent me the war plans to now attack plans. And here's what were in the text messages. So he's already rolling back what he originally said while still trying to perpetuate this and rehash it by releasing the text messages that he talked about in the first piece. It's a mess. I think everyone can agree. And I'm glad that most Republicans are saying, yeah, this looks stupid. This was stupid. Let's do better moving forward. And let's hope that this never happens again.
Yeah, look, I think the funny thing about this is many things can be true at once. You can say, all right, guys, this wasn't a smart conversation to have on Signal, and it wasn't smart to invite a reporter. Fair enough. But also, Jeffrey Goldberg spread misinformation, hyped this up and lied. It wasn't a war plan. And when all of the classified stuff came out, again, you can say it was sensitive, inappropriate, but the idea that it was, it didn't, as Pete Hegseth actually tweeted this out. Let me get this straight. The Atlantic released the so-called war plans, and those plans included no names, no target, no location, no units, no routes, no sources, no methods, and no classified information. They used terms to hype this that were not true. But this is the perfect segue, and that's what I think is interesting, is that Jeffrey Goldberg intentionally withheld stuff to hype it up and to lie because he wanted clicks on his failing website.
And how about the timing, Sean? I didn't realize until this week, maybe others already knew this, I did not know that these hearings that we've been watching, Tulsi and Ratliff and others, these were scheduled.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. And so it's like the timing is perfect for a stupid story like this, too. And I didn't realize all these people were set to testify on a calendar already.
Know what? You know what? Because he held that story.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Stigall. Darn, man. That's true. I thought about it. He actually probably looked at the schedule and said, if I release it now, then they'll get asked about it. Those are generally called posture hearings, where they come up from time to time, and the military does them, the intelligence community, where they go up and sit in front of the committee of jurisdiction and just say, hey, here's how we're doing. Here's what our budget needs are. But that's actually, because you remember, he did hold that for a long time. Oh, this is why people watch the show.
But it's also the part of it that I think Karoline Leavitt, the press secretary, I thought Pete Hegseth's response right away was a little hot. I thought he could have been a little bit tempered on it. But I will say there's been a lot of people in the Trump administration who keep making the point, and Trump, the president himself, has said this, it was a successful mission.
Right.
Yeah, could something bad have happened? Absolutely. Do we need to address that? Do we need to take precautions going forward? But none of these people cared. I keep hearing people say people could have died. Well, when people did die, none of you said anything. So forgive me if I'm lectured from you.
When Afghanistan happened, Grace, I remember the outrage when actual people died. You guys said nothing. Biden's looking at his watch.
Yeah.
And when that happened, they said nothing. When no one dies in a successful mission, it's like, let's talk about, oh man, you guys are so good. All right. Well, speaking of bias and bad press, oh my goodness. The head of NPR is up yesterday. I know if you're listening, it's almost like I hope the audio people watch the video right now, because the collective head rolling is well warranted. The CEO of NPR testifies in front of Marjorie Taylor Greene's committee. She does this Doge committee, and obviously, I think enough. Again, this is where the lead got buried. Defund the thing, and so the stage was set yesterday about the bias of NPR. Take a look at this.
former senior business editor for NPR.
How long do you work at NPR?
I believe he was there just over 25 years.
25 years? Award-winning journalist? Did he win any awards?
Our time did not
Peabody
overlap.
Award? That's pretty important, isn't it?
That is,
So
absolutely.
pretty distinguished journalist, right?
Certainly.
And he wrote a long story about what you do at NPR. Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of political bias determining editorial decisions. No.
Well, Mr. Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I find that
Was award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner, was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just we don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0, and you're not biased?
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
It's concerning. I mean, it wasn't 44-43. It wasn't 60-27. It wasn't 70-17. It wasn't even 80-7. It was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans, and you say NPR is not biased.
Okay. All right. But then it gets, I wanted to show you this so Jim Jordan just calls her out like over and over again about the bias of, but then this is the kicker. Brandon Gill, new congressman, does a phenomenal job. And I'm not even I don't want to prejudge this. Watch this and then we'll react to it. Just watch this masterclass in taking on a witness. Brandon Gill, go.
It's interesting because a lot of your thinking, as expressed by your public statements, is deeply infused with economic and cultural Marxism. Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't? You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. How white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I've never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, yes, the North, yes, all of us, yes, America, yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt, yes, reparations, yes, on this day.
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay, how much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, it's just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone.
Seems to be what you're
sir.
suggesting.
Okay. All right. I will just say that it goes on. It doesn't get better. I don't even know where to start on this, Hayley Caronia, because I was like, did you not have a team that said, hey, ma'am, we went through some of your tweets. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene's committee. Jim Jordan's on the committee. Never mind Brandon Gill. He's a new member, so maybe they didn't know where he was going to come, that they didn't see him kind of coming from around the corner like a spider monkey. But they knew Jim Jordan. They knew Marjorie. I'm like, I would have gone back to my team and said, you're all fired. I'm going to do the Doge for you because you didn't prepare me.
This was horrible. This was the ultimate you I've ever seen in my life. This was like the ultimate self-own. I mean, Brandon Gill was using her own tweets against her. She couldn't even explain why she was tweeting these things or in the context in which she tweeted them, I'll tell you it was because during 2020, this country was race obsessed and the media was perpetuating it. So the NPR and the chief of NPR, she's putting out things like white people owe reparations, and she's doing the whole white guilt thing that the entire media was pushing on the American people for years. It started in 2020 with George Floyd, and it continued, and the divisiveness in this country got even worse thanks to the media, and this is the ultimate exhibit A.
Grace, the thing that I thought I wish I'd seen more, and I know this is the boring part, maybe it wouldn't have gotten as much attention. Okay, it wouldn't have gotten as much attention as, like, I don't understand why we pay for it. Like, I would have said, how many Hollywood fans do you have? Well, a lot. They all love us. Okay, why can't you? I know what's her face, Sheryl Crow selling her Tesla to donate to NPR. Like, I would have liked to have seen them kind of go down more of a rabbit hole of why can't you just raise the money? Like, why should we be financing this?
Yeah, and I thought Marjorie Taylor Greene, she had this line that really stuck out to me. She told Catherine Marr, are you aware that 77 million people also fund this? Like, all these people that really, what she was saying is all these people you hate and these people you think are racist and, are these terrible humans, they're also helping pay your bills. So maybe they deserve a viewpoint in this publication or this outlet. But I don't understand why we're paying for it. I haven't understood for a long time. They lost me when they told their readers that they wouldn't be reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop because it wasn't a real story or it wasn't important to them. I don't know which way they phrased it. So there have been plenty of moments for Americans to wake up and realize this is not something that we should be funding. If they feel this passionately about all their little pet projects and all their little investigative journalism pieces, they can fund it themselves. Like you said, there's plenty of people who can, pay the bills. It doesn't have to be us.
They have carved out a really specific niche for themselves over the generations, and it's a pretty powerful one. Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street. And so when Pew Research says how many think we should defund NPR and PBS, most people say, oh, no, we shouldn't do that. We should keep the funds going because everybody thinks, and Democrats always play this card, Bert and Ernie and Elmo and Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street, as if that's all they are. And so Americans who don't pay close attention to this stuff still think it's, this kid-friendly island of truth in the midst of partisanship, when in fact, of course, we all know they're hyper-partisan. And all of us are in media. And we know what it is to try to have to make a buck in this game right now. We know how tough it is. I know I do. I've been through massive rounds of layoffs with previous companies, and I've seen colleagues furloughed and fired and budget cuts. It's I have not an ounce of sympathy for NPR or PBS having to actually compete like the rest of us in media do.
The thing that I think is interesting to your point, though, Chris, is I don't even think people, I do. I think they default to, oh, it's Sesame Street. But what I don't think people get is Big Bird is a millionaire. The Children's Television Network is a private company that sells a ton of merch, makes a ton of money, and then licenses their show to PBS for money. So they are not that's not PBS, right? That's a show that exists in the private sector, makes millions and millions of dollars, and then licenses the show. So this is it's not like PBS is actually producing Sesame Street or Elmo or any of these other shows or Masterpiece Theater. I don't know if that's even still on. But the bottom line is that these are all private sector shows that are licensed to them. The question, Hayley, to me is, after you saw that, if it wasn't bad enough in the past, I don't know how any Republican, because we have majorities in the House and Senate, can with a good conscience say this is worthy of taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, it's not. And it's interesting because all this happened yesterday, and I went to NPR's website this morning. Everything is anti-Trump. Mm-hmm. Everything on it is anti-Trump. Every story was Trump did this wrong, Trump did this wrong. And then there was one story about Meghan Markle at the end. So to close the fact that they are so anti-Trump, they have TDS beyond belief. This is not worthy of half of Americans, or all Americans for that matter, to pay to keep this going. This doesn't represent the majority of Americans.
Absolutely not. All right, I want to switch gears for a second because this is not the liberal media. This is a video that Kristi Noem put out yesterday. She was down in El Salvador visiting that terrorism confinement center. She's put out some videos in the past. I will let you guys judge what you think of this one, because I was like, whoa. Take a look at her video that she posted on social media last night.
Here at CCOT today and visiting this facility. And first of all, I want to thank El Salvador and their president for their partnership with the United States of America to bring our terrorists here and to incarcerate them and have consequences for the violence that they have perpetuated in our communities. I also want everybody to know, if you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face. First of all, do not come to our country illegally. You will be removed and you will be prosecuted. But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people.
Chris Stigall, that scared me. I was like,
yeah.
Those dudes in the prisons, there's like 400 in there with like no sheets on like metal bunks floor high. And I'm like, they all scare me and they're behind bars.
Yeah, it's a badass look. Kristi Noem saying, hey,
I wrote badass in the
we're going to shave you and we're going to throw you in a cage with the rest of these animals if you try it. So you're on notice. It's just wonderful. I asked this morning rhetorically on my own show, who was this for exactly? What was the visual? Why'd they do it? I mean, they don't do anything by accident. You know this, you're in messaging. That was clearly, right? I think that was twofold. It was one, we're not messing around for the American public, those who have suffered at the hands of these vile creatures. And number two, those that are here illegally. You better pack your things or you're going to wind up in a cage behind me too.
Damn. I just think this is a big difference, Grace. Like the image of Biden for 4 years was, the border is closed. Wink, nod. The border is closed, but if you come, here are the hotel choices that you have and the gift cards. And now it's like, I'm going to show you the prison you're going to in another country, and it ain't pretty.
Yeah, and it's a message, like Kristi Noem said, to people who want to come into this country illegally and, wreak havoc on our citizens. But it's also a message, I think, to the left. And Tom Homan, the border czar, talked a lot about this. When he was appointed border czar and before Trump was actually inaugurated, he made a point of saying, when we start doing this, there's going to be a tremendous effort by the mainstream media to kind of feed these stories that, oh, it's young moms and it's this and it's that and it's sympathetic victims that are being deported. And he's like, we're going to feed it right back. You want to know who's being deported? We'll show you who's being deported. You want to try to make it seem like it's all hunky-dory and none of these people wanted to hurt anyone? We will show you the tattooed gang members behind Kristi Noem. And it's a powerful message. And that kind of offensive, Sean, and we've talked about this before, it's so different from the first administration. It's not enough to do the right things. It's not enough to enact your agenda. You have to show the American people, communicate to the American people, this is what we're doing. Don't believe them when they tell you we're doing X, Y, Z. This is what we're doing. Here it is behind us. And I think they're doing a great job of it.
Haley, this has got to scare people like from coming in. I mean, she made it very clear. Like, that's not some backdrop, Hollywood backdrop or set. No. Like, I'm sitting behind a prison. There's bad dudes. You can see them and they're all tatted up. And it's almost like a shark tank. If you go in there, the shark's going to eat you. So you might not want to come to the country.
I mean, as you said, this image of all of these gang members behind her and all these prisoners behind her is scary. I mean, this is a really strong showing out of our DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. And it's a far cry from what we saw with border czar Kamala Harris and the previous administration that was very focused on just finding the root cause of immigration. They didn't want to stop the flow of migrants coming through the southern border. They wanted to just find out maybe why they were coming. And anyone with synapses firing in between their ears knows that it was because of the Biden administration itself. They were welcoming the people in, like you said, offering all these freebies paid for by the American taxpayer. And finally, we're seeing justice being served. Thank goodness.
Chris Stigall, I want to get to a segment that I'm calling the Jasmine Crockett segment in just a second. But before I do that, I can't go through the week right now without touching on politics, because you guys lost, and I'm not putting the blame entirely on you, but just somewhat, that there was a Republican-held seat in Pennsylvania in the legislature over 150 years, a Trump plus 33 district. Yeah. There's going to be two specials down in Haley's neck of the woods in the 1st and the 6th congressional district on April 1st. I worry about whether it was just a bad candidate in Pennsylvania and a bad consultant, which I've heard about, or are we going to see a repeat in the 1st and the 6th districts down in Florida? So what is the quick political analysis, and how much of the blame do you bear?
Pennsylvania Republicans historically, when left to their own devices, suck. That's just true. Now, I will say Whatley and Laura Trump and Scott Pressler, I mean, it was a ground game along with Elon. There was a push in Pennsylvania like Pennsylvania had never seen. The Republican Party of Pennsylvania was dragged along behind the machine of the Trump force. When left to their own, they say to themselves, well, hey, we're Trump plus whatever. We got this thing in the bag. And guess who's rabid and frothing and wants it more? Democrats. I don't know that that'll be the case down in Haley's neck of the woods, but in Pennsylvania, you can't sleep on Democrats because they're coming.
Yeah, I think it is going to be different in Florida. I'm hoping because in the case of the 6th district, this is NSA Mike Waltz's old seat. This is a plus 30 Trump district. I know, it's concerning because you had just lost in Pennsylvania plus 33. But I do think we're seeing a lot of panic because Democrats are funding a ton of money into this. I think they've raised tens of millions of dollars, whereas the state senator, Randy Fine, has only raised just under $1 million. So we do see a vast difference there in fundraising. But a lot of this money is coming from the outside. I think they're pumping money into this, but we do have to wonder, how are the Florida voters going to react and how are they going to vote? And I don't think that they're going to vote Democrat. And plus, because we're seeing this outside funding coming from the Democrats, Elon Musk is now coming in and pumping in to the Republican side. So I'm staying hopeful in Florida. I know I just got here, but I think this is a Trump stronghold and we're going to keep it.
That 6th district that Randy Fine is running for concerns me. Jimmy Petronis, the 1st district, I think is in good shape, but I do worry about the 6th. All right, I want to get to my Jasmine Crockett segment. She brilliantly went out on a limb this week and made fun of the very, esteemed governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. I want to play you what she said about Greg Abbott that a lot of people, rightly so, think is offensive. Take a look.
Because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So yes.
Grace, he's in a wheelchair. I mean, again, I can't believe the lack of. I mean, I know we're outraged, but no one on the Dem side is being asked about this.
No. And the backdrop of the human rights campaign, step and repeat behind her. She's at this fancy LA dinner and they're eating up this joke about making fun of Greg Abbott for being in a wheelchair. I wouldn't think that crowd would be so into that. It's so insane. And I love this woman. I love Jasmine Crockett. I think she's a gift to Republicans. Everything she says, I'm like, oh my Lord. And the funniest part of this, well, there's two parts that one people are talking about, which is the fact that she tried to walk it back and say, I was talking about the wheels on the trucks that take illegal aliens out. I don't know. I couldn't even explain it to you if I tried. I'll let Hayley or Chris try to do that one. But then it came out that she's actually been liking Hot Wheels stuff about him since 2021. So this is not something that was new.
Wow. I didn't know that.
The other part, Free Beacon had a good story on it. The other part of it that kind of reminds me of Tim Walz and the Tesla comments he made on the stage is that sometimes you have to take a step back and you have to go, there were people involved who thought this was a good idea. Like this was a speech she gave. This was at a podium, the glass podium with cards. And I'm sure I don't know if she riffed the whole thing, but in my mind, it's like these gaffes, Sean, they used to be that someone like Bill Clinton would go out, not realize there was a microphone, say something stupid, and then have to walk it back. These gaffes are constructed by a team of people who think this is a winning message for the Democrats. Let's go out and let's make fun of Governor Greg Abbott for being in a wheelchair. That's the part to me that is so insane. It's like, let's send Tim Walz out and he'll show his phone with the Tesla stock dropping. That will be really funny. This is a problem. It's not just with these individual lunatics. It's with the Democrats in general that they think this is the way forward. Blows my mind.
All right. I want to do a quick rapid round before we get to our winners and losers of the week. And so just please try to keep this quick because 23andMe has filed for bankruptcy. Any of you worried about the data out there? I've never done it. It was never allowed in the military. But I just think these are the consequences of these stuff. Everybody thinks it's cute. It's like going on TikTok. It's like, guess what? This is what happens.
No, the only time I'm swabbing anything is in the doctor's office. I'm not willingly giving my DNA to some random company. And this isn't in the instance of 23andMe, but it does beg the question, like, where are you sending this data? Ancestry.com is owned by BlackRock. So I think COVID kind of like woke people up to the fact of, who is owning these companies. So we've seen this downward trajectory in Ancestry.com and in 23andMe. So it's not a surprise that it's going bankrupt. But there's a question now of like, where does this data go? Who's buying it? What happens next? And that's really, really scary.
It also, as a business model, never occurred to me until I was reading about it. Of course, you don't need it more than once. It's a terrible business model, something you buy once and never
Let me
again.
Check my DNA again. Maybe it's changed this week.
Someone should have thought that one through. That one didn't even occur
Good
to
point.
me. Yeah.
I'll be the idiot on the panel, and I'll say, I did it. I
Okay.
did it.
I get
I know. I did it years ago, and it was, I was probably in my early 20s, and I wanted to see, and it was so the rage, and I'm admitting it, like big.
No. I get
Did
it.
you learn anything from it? Were you related to Jasmine Crockett or something?
I'm 3.1%
Native
West
American.
Asian, I believe. A lot of Baltic out there. I did learn a little bit, but like, would I do it again? No, but hey.
All right. Yes or no for these quick ones. April 5th, there's a TikTok deadline that the government has to act. Does the government ban TikTok, or do they kick the can down the road? Hayley, kick or ban?
I hope they kick it down the road because my entire show is based on scrolling on TikTok and reacting to social media videos. I love TikTok. So I hope that they kick the can down the road.
Chris, ban or kick?
They kick because of people like Hayley. I guarantee it.
Grace, kick or ban?
Kick.
Reconciliation bill. Does it get passed, or is this going to, Ron Johnson said yesterday, no bueno. Reconciliation bill, does it pass the Senate? Yes or no? Hayley?
Yes.
Chris?
It better.
Grace?
Yes.
All right. The AP is in court today arguing that they have the right to be in the White House pool. Does the AP ultimately get back in the pool? Yes or no? Hayley?
I don't think they'll allow it, but I think they should be.
Oh, okay. God, I didn't leave enough time for that. Chris Stigall?
No.
Good. Grace, be on my side. Be on my side. Be on my side.
No.
Okay, good. Yeah, we go down a whole thing. All right. Winners and losers. I'm going to start with Grace Curley. Who do you think the winner and the loser is of the week?
Okay, so winner, I mentioned him earlier in the show. I think the cut's going to blow up tomorrow and over the weekend is Doug Collins just
I looked at it. It's good.
Caitlin Collins, it's absolute. It's a masterclass in how to handle CNN and how to handle these media, these, faux outrage people. And loser, I was going to go Jasmine Crockett, but I already talked a lot about her. So I'll go Disney with Snow White. Like that was a huge, I was hoping it was going to bomb. It's been a huge disaster for them, and it just keeps getting messier. So big time losers.
Good. I've got a video, by the way, coming out this weekend on both Jasmine Crockett and Snow White that people I think are going to be fun. Chris Stigall, winner and loser.
Winner, Eric Schmidt, senator from Missouri, who didn't get the attention he was due this week, but had some extraordinarily important hearings on government censorship and the NGOs that have been censoring voices, particularly through COVID. But why that's important is hugely important. I encourage everybody to go back and pay close attention to what Eric Schmidt said in his opening statement and what came out of that hearing. Loser is this Goldberg, who continues to be a loser at The Atlantic. He showed himself to be an even bigger loser this week.
Hayley Caronia, kick us off. Who do you got, winner and loser?
Right. Winner is Men Everywhere, because apparently Sydney Sweeney has called off her engagement and she is single. So she's a very beautiful actress. I think she's MAGA too. She has MAGA members. Yeah, she's MAGA family members. She got caught getting canceled because her family members were wearing blue line and MAGA hats. So thin blue line shirts, whatever. She is single. So good day for American Men Everywhere. So that's great. And then I would say the losers, those two illegal migrants who attacked a minor on the Royal Caribbean cruise. One of them was HIV positive. They will be deported, thank goodness. But biggest losers, pedophiles are always losers.
Yeah. I think Trump should do this. You will be deported. Like, instead of you're fired, you're deported. That could be the new tagline. All right.
We should send pedophiles to that Kristi Noem prison.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, they should have their own. By the way, really interesting that Hayley brought up men everywhere, because there's this whole British thing that I've been starting to read about toxic masculinity in Britain and the prime minister weighing in. It's an interesting thing over there. I try to learn more about
Are there masculine British men? I don't know. Any, are they?
That's why I think I was trying to figure that out myself. I do agree. Jasmine Crockett is the big loser. Jeffrey Goldberg gave her a run this week, no question about it. But my winner, and I'm surprised, normally everybody steals my stuff because I go last because it's polite. It's polite. I go last. My winner, J.D. Vance at Quantico yesterday. Take a look at this guy. He is shooting guns, having fun, former Marine out there in his element. When was the last time you saw that? I mean, I love this. That's just, you want to talk about toxic masculinity. The Vice President of the United States firing off, looks like an M4, out there at Quantico. That is badass. So thank you guys. Congratulations, Hayley, on the success of your show and your first time here. Grace Curley, Chris Stigall, love you guys all equally. Tomorrow, an unbelievable conversation with Seb Gorka. I mean, I love having him on. This will be the first time he's back since he's been back in the White House. Another episode or another edition of SeanSpicer.com drops. We look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Thanks for being with us. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.